Hi, you're on the Reddit Confessions channel. The front door was unlocked, again. The hallway light was on, again. But the wine glass on the counter? That was new. I walked in quietly. Not because I was trying to be dramatic, but because I didn't want to startle her. Or them. I wasn't sure yet. The house smelled like vanilla candles and borrowed cologne. And for the first time in weeks, I didn't call out her name. I just stood there, one hand still on the doorknob, the other clutching a plastic grocery bag filled with stupidly symbolic things. A box of her favorite crackers, a pack of tissues, and a lighter for the scented candle I thought we could relight together. There was a note beside the wine glass. Folded. Handwritten. Not addressed to me. I didn't open it. I didn't need to. I had something better. See, people talk about the moment their heart breaks like it's dramatic or cinematic. Mine was scheduled. Planned. Expected. I had known for 12 days and 9 hours. And still, I brought her roses. 13 long-stemmed, pale pink roses. Anniversary roses. Each one trimmed, cleaned, wrapped in soft tissue paper. The florist even included a small card, which I didn't fill out, because I wrote my own letter. For pages. Typed. Signed with the words, "Thank you for the clarity." She wasn't home. I knew she wouldn't be. She'd told her sister she was going to a hotel with a view for work, a lie I accidentally overheard while fixing the router behind her office chair. She forgot I existed in the room, kind of like she had for the past 6 months. But that wasn't the most painful part. What really sank me was realizing that she wasn't hiding it anymore. She wasn't deleting texts. She wasn't pretending to be busy. She wasn't even lying with effort. She just didn't care. So I placed the roses in the center of the dining table, exactly where she'd find them first. I set the folded letter next to her wine glass. And I removed one single thing from the house before I left. The framed photo from our honeymoon, the one where she's laughing and I'm blurry in the background. I didn't take it out of spite. I took it because I finally understood what it meant. I was always out of focus. When I left the house that night, I didn't slam the door. I didn't toss my wedding ring in the sink or drive off like some action movie cliché. I pulled the door gently shut and locked it behind me, because even in betrayal, I still had manners. That's how far gone I was. That's how much she had worn me down. I wasn't angry. I wasn't even surprised. I was just tired. I drove to a parking lot outside a closed elementary school. Sat in the dark. Engine off. Phone face down. The letter I left on the table still echoed in my head, even though I'd reread it 100 times before I printed it. I had edited every line like I was applying for a job I no longer wanted. It didn't start with "Dear Janice." No, I wanted it to feel like a conversation she walked in on too late. Like the middle of a confession she couldn't stop. It began with, "By the time you read this, I'll be long gone." Not out of cruelty. Out of survival. I told her everything. That I knew about the hotel. That I knew about the man with the leather watch and the silver SUV. That I saw the receipts she hid in the bottom drawer of her makeup bag, 2 glasses of wine, 1 room, late checkout. I told her about the email she forgot to delete and the voice note she accidentally sent to me instead of her friend. The one where she giggled and said, "He still brings me flowers." Like that fixes anything. But the letter wasn't just about her lies. It was about me. It was the first time I had written about myself without editing out the parts that sounded too soft, too weak, too pathetic. I admitted I had known something was wrong for over a year and had done nothing. That I was afraid of the silence more than the truth. That I chose denial because it was warmer than sleeping alone. I reminded her of the little things I remembered. Things she thought I had forgotten. Like how she used to tuck her knees under herself when she sat on the couch. How she once cried watching a dog food commercial. How she hated the word moist and loved the smell of libraries. I listed them, not to hurt her, but to show her that even when she stopped seeing me, I never stopped seeing her. The last paragraph was the hardest to write. I told her that the roses weren't for her. Not anymore. They were for the version of her I married. The version I buried quietly over the past year without even realizing it. I ended the letter with one line. "This isn't revenge. This is relief." And then I walked away. I don't know what her face looked like when she read it. I don't know if she cried or screamed or laughed. I only know that an hour after I left, she called me 14 times. I didn't answer a single one. I watched the phone light up, ring, stop, and ring again. The last voicemail she left was 7 seconds of silence, followed by a sharp inhale, as if she wanted to say something but realized too late that she had already said everything that mattered to someone else. The next morning, I drove back, not to return, but to watch. I parked 2 blocks away, angled slightly, so I could see the front porch. I didn't know what I was looking for exactly. Maybe I wanted to see her crumble the roses. Maybe I wanted her to toss the letter into the wind like it meant nothing. Or maybe, deep down, I hoped she'd fall apart on the steps. Something raw, something real. Something that showed me I wasn't the only one bleeding from this. She arrived around 9:40 a.m., alone, in his car. That alone told me more than I wanted to know. I saw her hesitate before she unlocked the front door. She stood there like someone unsure whether to enter a crime scene or a church. Her hand hovered above the knob longer than I expected, and when she finally stepped inside, she didn't close the door behind her. It just hung open, as if even the house had given up. For a few long minutes, nothing. Then, movement in the window. I saw her freeze. She had found the roses. She picked one up and held it like it was a fragile artifact. She brought it to her face, not to smell it, but like she was trying to recognize it. That told me everything. She never thought I'd leave. She expected another emotional plea, another quiet dinner, maybe another lame bouquet to smooth over what couldn't be smoothed. But I'd left something else, and the moment she sat down and unfolded that letter, I saw her break. She covered her mouth. Her head dropped. Then she stood abruptly, knocking over the wine glass from last night. It shattered. Fitting, really. Then came something I didn't expect. She ran out the front door. No coat. No phone. No shoes. Just panic. She looked around like she might spot me hiding behind a bush or a tree. For a second, our eyes almost met. She didn't see me, but her gaze lingered near my direction. Her shoulders dropped. She sank onto the steps. Elbows on knees, face in hands. She didn't move for a long time. When she finally did, it was slow, like her body had aged decades in that one moment. She dragged herself inside and shut the door with the same hand that used to hold mine while she laughed at dumb sitcoms. I stayed there, motionless, not out of fear, but out of finality. I had seen what I needed to see. Not revenge, not regret, just the realization in her eyes that the version of me she took for granted was gone. She texted me at 11:12 a.m. Where are you? Can we talk? I didn't answer. At 12:03 p.m., another message. I read it. I didn't know you were hurting that much. Please come home. Still, I didn't reply. At 12:57 p.m., a third. I made a mistake. One I don't even understand fully yet. But you were the best thing that ever happened to me. Please. I locked my phone and placed it face down on the passenger seat. I refused to let her turn this into her healing arc. This wasn't the part where I became her lesson. I was done being the stepping stone she needed to rediscover her truth. I wasn't her soft place to land anymore. She burned that bridge, danced in the ashes, and now she was choking on the smoke. Later that day, I checked into a cheap roadside motel off Route 67. The kind of place where the air smells like old curtains, and the vending machine has a sign taped over the slot that just says, "Don't." I could have gone to my brother's place in Akron, but I didn't want questions. I didn't want sympathy. I didn't want anyone telling me I was too good for this, or that she'd realize what she lost. I just wanted silence, and to let it echo loud enough to drown out every fake apology I knew she'd try to offer. I had no plan, no grand scheme. I didn't even bring my laptop. Just a duffel bag with 3 shirts, 2 pairs of jeans, my toothbrush, and the photo I'd taken from the house. That honeymoon picture had always annoyed me, honestly. She looked stunning, wind in her hair, eyes sparkling. I was out of focus in the background, trying to set the camera timer mid-blink. Now it felt like the only honest picture of our marriage. The texts kept coming. I didn't read them. I saw the previews on my lock screen and deleted each one without opening. That night, though, something strange happened. At 2:13 a.m., my phone rang, not a number I recognized. I let it go to voicemail, but when I played it back, it stopped me cold. It was her sister. Her voice was sharp, panicked, and full of rage. "Lowell, what the hell did you write in that letter? Janice is not okay." She called me sobbing, barely able to breathe, saying you left her and wouldn't answer. She's freaking out. She says she deserves it, but, Jesus, man, you broke her. Call her back, or at least call me. I didn't call either of them. I stared at the cracked ceiling above my head and felt nothing. Not vindicated. Not angry. Just emptied out. Like someone had vacuumed all the love and grief and confusion from my chest and left behind the echo of a man who stayed too long and left too quietly. The next morning, I finally opened one of her messages. Not out of hope, just curiosity. I sat on the kitchen floor with your letter for 2 hours. I read it 10 times. You're right about everything. But please, please don't let this be the end of us. The desperation in her tone felt surreal. For so long, I had been the one begging for her to see me, to notice how I was shrinking, how I was hurting. And now that I'd left, she finally opened her eyes. But it was too late. It wasn't the affair that ended it. It was the indifference that came before it. The way she forgot my birthday last year and didn't notice until a week later. The way she rolled her eyes when I asked if we could eat dinner together more than twice a week. The way she turned, "I love you," into an automatic reply, like she was checking a box. And maybe I was guilty too, of being too passive, too forgiving, of assuming she'd come back to me eventually, like a yo-yo that just needed time to recoil. But I was done blaming myself for her betrayal. You don't cheat on someone you still want to protect. And you don't protect someone you've emotionally erased. Around noon, I got another call, this time from her mom. I didn't answer, but her voicemail was quiet, just 10 seconds of silence. Then a gentle, almost whispered, "She's not eating. She keeps staring at the door like you'll come back." That should have hurt. It should have made me feel something. But it didn't. Because I had stared at that same door for years, praying for a version of her that no longer existed. Now it was her turn to sit in that silence. I packed my bag again. Not to go home, but to keep moving. Somewhere new. Somewhere that didn't remind me of Sunday mornings filled with cold coffee and colder conversations. Somewhere I could rebuild, not escape. I didn't expect what happened next. A few days had passed since I disappeared. I'd driven through 2 states, slept in my car twice, and used a truck stop sink as a shower. I wasn't proud of any of that, but it was better than sleeping in a bed she'd once shared with another man. I didn't check my phone much, but when I did, it was always the same. Messages piling up from Janice, her sister, her mom. Most of them unread. But that morning, I woke up to something different. A call from someone I never expected. Liam, an old friend of mine who used to live 2 streets down from us before he moved to Florida. He didn't even start with hello. "Lowell," he said, breathless. "You need to get on Facebook right now." She posted something. "Man, I think she's losing it." I opened the app with zero interest, half expecting some vague quote about forgiveness or heartbreak. What I saw instead was a photo of the roses I left. Right there on our dining table. Beside it, my letter, opened and surrounded by tear stains, if I had to guess. And then the caption. "He left without shouting." No accusations. Just flowers and a goodbye that broke me into pieces. If you ever had someone who gave you their whole soul, and you threw it away, you'll understand what I lost. Please come home. I was stupid. I was selfish. But I wasn't ready to lose you like this. Hundreds of likes. Dozens of comments. People chiming in with sympathy, heart emojis, "Stay strong, girl." And men don't know how to love these days. The irony punched me so hard in the chest I had to sit down on the curb outside a diner just to breathe. She had turned my pain into her performance. She made herself the protagonist in the tragedy she created. And somehow, I was still the villain to the public. I scrolled further, and it got worse. She had posted old pictures of us, vacations, birthdays, our first Christmas together. She was building a narrative, one where she was the grieving wife and I was the cold, distant husband who gave up too soon. It was like watching someone write fiction about your life. Only the ending was twisted to get applause. I didn't comment. I didn't post a response. I didn't even message her. Instead, I finally did something I should have done years ago. I called my lawyer. It wasn't even a dramatic conversation. I told him I wanted to begin the divorce process. He asked if there was infidelity. I said yes. He sighed, then asked if I had proof. I told him I had emails, photos, and voice messages. He said that was more than enough. I gave him her name, our address, and by the end of the call, I felt like someone had loosened the belt around my chest. Later that night, I got one last text from her. I didn't mean for it to go public. I just didn't know how else to say I was sorry. But that was the thing. She hadn't said sorry. Not once. She didn't apologize when I was crying into a pillow while she lied about work dinners. She didn't say sorry when I found hotel receipts in her coat pocket or when she left me waiting at a restaurant on our anniversary. She said sorry only when people were watching, when it made her look like the wounded one. And that's when I realized she missed the version of me that never held her accountable. That man was gone, so I did what I had to do. It only took 2 days for my letter to arrive at the house. I knew, because she texted me the moment she opened it. Not a long paragraph like before. Not a teary confession or a desperate voice note. Just 6 words. You really want to end us? I didn't reply. Not because I didn't have anything to say, but because there was nothing left worth saying to someone who only valued me when I became a ghost. I stared at her message for a while, though, and for a second, just a second, I almost felt guilty. Like maybe I'd taken it too far. But then I remembered everything. The voicemail she sent to the wrong contact, where she told her affair partner she felt alive again for the first time in years. The photo from the hotel parking lot. The half-lie she gave me when I confronted her about working late that night. Still, I thought that might be the end of it. That maybe we'd both quietly fade into separate corners of the world. But Janice didn't fade. She exploded. That weekend, I found out she went live on Instagram. My cousin sent me the clip. It was late at night, her eyes red, voice shaky. In the background, the same dining table where I had left the roses. They were gone now, of course, replaced by a wine bottle and tissues she probably arranged for effect. She told everyone she had ruined a good man, that she'd made the mistake of confusing attention for affection, and that she was now paying the price for destroying her best friend. She didn't name me, but she didn't have to. Everyone knew who she was talking about. And what hit me hardest? I could tell she wasn't acting. For the first time, maybe ever, I believed she was genuinely broken. But it was too late. A genuine apology after months of emotional neglect, deceit, and betrayal doesn't rebuild anything. It just confirms what I already knew. She had always been capable of empathy. She just chose not to use it when I needed it most. The next morning, my inbox was flooded. Not just from friends or family. Strangers. People I hadn't spoken to in years suddenly reaching out. Some praised me for walking away. Others questioned if I was sure I wasn't giving up too quickly. As if they had sat in our bedroom at 2 a.m. while she texted another man in the bathroom with the door half closed. It didn't matter. I didn't respond to any of them. I had already started building something else, quietly. I'd rented a tiny place a few towns over, just far enough that no one would accidentally run into me, but close enough to keep my job. It wasn't much, 1 bedroom, old paint, strange smell in the hallway, but it was mine. No echoes of fake laughter. No ghost of a woman who used to smile at me like I was enough. Then something unexpected happened. Janice showed up. I heard the knock before I saw her. It was soft, hesitant. I almost didn't open the door. But I did. She looked awful. Pale, eyes swollen, like she hadn't slept in days. She didn't speak at first. She just handed me something. A manila envelope. Inside were divorce papers. Signed. Every page. I looked at her, waiting for her to speak, to say something dramatic or beg for closure. I won't fight you anymore, she whispered. You were the only real thing I had. I didn't respond. I stepped back, closed the door, and slid the deadbolt into place. After she handed me the divorce papers and walked away, I stood at the door for a long time, listening to the silence. I didn't cry. I didn't feel relief. I didn't feel anything. That was the scariest part. For years, I was a man tangled in emotions I couldn't name: grief, confusion, hope, desperation. Now that it was over, it was like my heart had gone numb. I should have felt free. Instead, I felt blank. I sat on the couch with the envelope in my lap, unopened. I didn't need to read it right away. She had signed it. That was all that mattered. After everything she'd done, after everything I endured in silence, I finally had control again. Not in a vengeful way, but in a way that said, this time, I choose what happens next. That evening, I drove out to a lake I used to visit before we were married. I hadn't been back in over a decade. I parked near the edge, where the trees opened up just enough to see the water shimmer under the moonlight. I brought a thermos of cheap coffee and the photo of us from our honeymoon. The one I'd carried with me from the house, the only one I hadn't thrown out. I sat there for hours, trying to understand what I was mourning. Not her. Not the marriage. I realized I was grieving the version of myself I lost trying to make her happy. The guy who rearranged his schedule so she could have space. The guy who apologized first, even when she started the fight. The guy who brought home flowers just to be met with a distracted thanks and a nod toward the laundry that needed folding. That guy died long before the divorce papers were signed. I just hadn't buried him yet. Around 2 a.m., my phone buzzed. I ignored it. Then it buzzed again. And again. I finally looked. Not a call. Not a text. An email. From her. The subject line just read, "Before you forget everything." I didn't open it right away. I waited until I got back to the apartment, half expecting it to be a rant, a plea, or worse, some poetic nonsense about healing and second chances. But what I read wasn't any of that. She had written a list of memories, 37 of them, one for every year I'd been alive. Some were small. The night we stayed up to watch that meteor shower and ended up falling asleep on the roof. Others were painful. The way you looked at me after I forgot your birthday. I think that was the first time I realized I was losing you. And a few were brutal. I told him I loved him once. I didn't mean it. I was trying to feel something that never existed. She ended the email with one final line. "You didn't just walk away. You taught me what it means to be left by someone who loved me too long." I stared at that screen for almost an hour. Not because it changed anything. It didn't. But because it confirmed something I'd always suspected. She only understood my worth when she no longer had access to it. And the truth is, I don't think she ever saw me clearly until I was already gone. I didn't respond. I archived the email and shut my laptop. That chapter was closed. I didn't need to underline it. The next morning, I met with my lawyer and finalized everything. No mediation, no arguments. Clean break. I walked out of that office into the blinding sunlight, took a deep breath, and realized I hadn't had to pretend for anyone in weeks. No fake smiles. No second-guessing my own gut. No tiptoeing around someone else's shifting moods. I was alone, but finally whole. 3 months later, I sat at a small cafe downtown, sipping coffee that actually tasted good, not just hot brown water, but something real, something rich. A book sat open in front of me, not because I was reading it, but because I liked the idea of being someone who could sit still again. The chaos was over. The lies, the gaslighting, the guilt. It was all behind me, sealed in a folder at my lawyer's office and in the memories I had finally stopped revisiting. A waitress passed by, smiled at me and said, "You look like you're finally at peace." I laughed a little, mostly because it caught me off guard. But she wasn't wrong. I was at peace. It had taken heartbreak, a silent departure, and the slow rebuilding of my entire identity, but somehow, I'd made it through. I wasn't bitter. I wasn't angry. If anything, I was grateful. Grateful that she showed me who she really was. Grateful that I finally had the courage to stop begging someone to choose me. Grateful that the quiet I feared for so long turned out to be my freedom. One afternoon, while cleaning out the last box from my old life, I found the anniversary card I'd bought the night she never showed up. I almost threw it away, but curiosity got the better of me. I opened it. Blank. Untouched. But instead of pain, I smiled. That blank space wasn't a symbol of what I lost. It was a space waiting to be filled by something better. And this time, it would be. A month later, I started volunteering at a local community center. Nothing big, just tutoring a few kids struggling with math. And one evening, after a long session of flashcards and jokes, one of the kids handed me a note. In crayon, it read, "You're my favorite. You help me not feel dumb." I teared up right there in that noisy classroom. Because for the first time in a long, long time, I felt seen. Not for what I could offer, not for what I could fix, but just for being there. I don't know what Janice is doing now. I haven't checked. I won't check. That story ended. And now, I'm writing new ones. Ones where I don't have to play the sad character hiding in the background. Ones where the main character is finally me. If you're reading this and still holding on to someone who forgot how to hold you back, I'll say this: walk away quietly. And then start something loud with your life. Not for revenge, not for validation, but because you deserve to live a life where love doesn't come with conditions. I thought I was losing everything when I walked out of that house. Turns out, that's the moment I got myself back. Thank you for being part of this story.